Hey, Shriram, I'd like to run something by you before I take it to the team. There's something I've been pursuing for a little while now, and I think it will fundamentally change our approach on how we're pursuing the safety stock in JD. So I'm going to ground a little bit in intent, and then I'll go through pretty quickly. So coverage-based safety stock, what's the intent? What are we trying to do, and how do we do it when we're in a quantity-based environment like we are in Enterprise One? What we're trying to do is determine the estimated daily demand by taking the total demand over a set duration of days. So let's say 30 days. Let's say 30 days of demand or whatever we choose, and then divide it by the days, total demand in that days divided by the days, and you get a daily demand. And then based on your target safety stock coverage, let's say 7 days, you multiply 7 by that average daily demand and you get a quantity. That's the quantity that we load into JD. And that's the key point here. The key point, you always have to use a quantity in our current environment. So that quantity is used as the replenishment trigger. When you hit that quantity, you should replenish because on average, this represents the days of forward coverage as a quantity. But it's wrong. And it's wrong 100% of the time. In situations where demand is rising, it'll be too late, causing service risk. In situations where demand is falling, it will be too early, causing UPI. That's just the nature of an average. Any number will be either too much 50% of the time or too little 50% of the time. It's just a matter of what degree of error we're going to have there. I'll grant you that if it would work in situations where demand is perfectly distributed day by day, month over month, but how often does that really happen? So is there another way? What if you could instead determine the stock-up point simply based on forward demand and then react by having a delivery arrive earlier, exactly aligned to your target days of coverage? Because on that date, it perfectly reflects how many days you have of coverage before you stock out. So if you stock out on a Friday and you want 3 days, you should replenish on a Wednesday because Wednesday through Friday is 3 days. It offsets by 3 days. Does that sound good? I think we can do this. And we can do it through an existing custom offset program that's already in JD. It's little known. It was created some time ago for some other reason. And it's mostly obsolete at this point or not being used. But I think it would work. What it does, it takes the request date, which is the stock out point in JD if you don't use any safety stock. So if your safety stock is set to 0, the stock out point will be the day that you hit negative. And in JD, that aligns with the request date. So it'll take that date and it'll offset it by exactly the days you've requested by the entry that's in the coverage table. There's a table out there. You enter the days by item, by location, away you go. So why would this be great? Well, there's no external model interpretations whatsoever. So even in the Ventura model, the model that you run, you have to do some shenanigans, you get some numbers, you get a quantity, you have to interpret it against a forecast to get a day's target coverage, and then you load the quantity into you load that quantity based on days coverage into JD, and then it's refreshed, presumably once a month. Now, what we're testing is, well, what if we take that target coverage and then we use JD to take that days of coverage and just use a rolling forward, say 30 days or 60 days or whatever it is, and then it'll do that. But even that requires an ongoing refresh, where JD is already doing all the calculations. It's literally refreshed daily with all the information. So whether it's sales orders, transfers, forecasts, all of that is dynamically changing in JD every day through MRP. So there's no manual refreshing of anything if you use the days offset and the request date or the stock out point. It's 100% aligned to MRP configuration. So today, that's order-driven planning. So it perfectly aligns with the system behavior, what the planners all see, and it'll adapt instantly if we do change a config. Say we change one of the items from 5 days to 10 days. Great, you don't need to update anything. It's just instantly going to pick up that in its MRP. And it's right 100% of the time. Whether the demand goes up or goes down, JD will use the stock out point as the anchor and then shift the replenishment by the days we've asked every time. I think we should try it. Here's some examples. This is a very stable scenario. So we've got 999 starting inventory cases. You can see here demand is 100 per day. It's perfect. And imagine it keeps going on forever. In this case, just to fit on the page, I'm using 12 days. So 12 days times 100 is 1,200. That's the demand over the 12 days. If you divide that by 12, that's 100 per day. You want 3 days of target coverage. So your quantity safety stock is 300. So according to the quantity safety stock approach, when we hit 299, which is just under 300, we should replenish. That's the green here. Now, in the offset approach, it looks at the inventory, waits until you go to negative, and then it offsets by 3 days. So in this case, both scenarios work perfectly. The safety lead time or offset works, and the safety stock quantity works perfect, stable. Let's say you have a little gap, almost the same scenario, but 3 days, for whatever reason, sales orders don't come in. So now your inventory goes down by the demand, but then it doesn't go down in the 3 days that you have no demand. And then it resumes again once you get sales orders or forecasts and you go down. And so according to the safety lead time, when you hit day 13, you're out of stock. So you should bring inventory in day 10, 3 days before. Now, because you're using a quantity safety stock in the alternate approach, you're looking for 225. JD is looking for 225. It sees that on day 11, and it says you should replenish. So safety stock's late a little bit. You replan safety lead time on day 10, on day 11 with quantity safety stock. It's close. It's not that bad, but it's not perfect. What about if you have a little more lumpy? You got a couple demand gaps, you got some lumpy sales orders. In this case, you got your 100 per day, then you got no demand, then you got, you catch up. Some sales orders come in, then you go back to normal, that kind of thing. So your inventory is coming down, and then you eventually you stagnate on 699, and then suddenly you have a big order and you're out of stock on day 7. Well, replenishment lead time puts it back 3 days. That's day 4. Now, quantity safety stock, because you're above the quantity in each of these days, it doesn't trigger a replan until you actually breach. So you never go below 375 in this case until you're actually out of stock. So you're way too late. Now you're service failure. That's really a bad scenario. What if you have no demand and then forward demand? And let's say I'm going to mimic here a little bit like a new launch item, or maybe an item that doesn't have stock, hasn't been ordered for a long time, or maybe make to order, that sort of thing. Something that has large gaps between its orders. So no demand, and then there's a big sales order, and then others. But this doesn't have to be big. It can be 50 cases. It doesn't matter. The point is there's nothing, and then there's something. Well, because over the course of the 12 days, and remember, we're talking 30 or 60 days when we do our average, just over 12 days, you still get a quantity safety stock, because over 12 days, the total demand is 1,200 divided by, in this case, 1,200, and you get 300. It's like the base case. So according to quantity safety stock, you should always have 300. That's now. Like if you have no inventory, that's now. According to the safety lead time, you stock out on day 7, so it moves it forward 3 days. So you're aging inventory at least by 3 days on your quantity safety stock. And imagine wilder examples, right? So this is not so bad. 3 days, not a big deal, but I could imagine 1-2 weeks, stuff like that if we're not careful. So safety lead time, perfect. Safety stock, way too early. The reverse. So now you have a little bit of inventory, you've got a forecast, but then nothing. Maybe you got a disco, or there's going to be a gap here again. Your inventory is coming down. According to your quantity safety stock, it's 125. So you replan on day 3, which is too late. It's only a day before you stock out. According to safety lead time, you replenish 3 days earlier. Again, it's perfect. So my recommendation has shifted. Rather than do all this super fancy stuff that we're trying to do through interpretations and such, we should adopt a safety lead time program that exists as the safety stock mechanism for finished goods. All the target days that are entered into that table will act as the days of coverage target for safety stock. JD will use a stock out date. It'll prorate and as it needs to, and it's totally aligned to MRP. There's a couple issues we need to fix it in terms of reporting because we don't have visibility to that table, but we can fix all that. For materials, given that safety stock already hedges for market volatility, you don't want to overcount safety too much. So the out-of-the-box functionality with the dynamic safety stock is percentage lead time. Well, let's apply that to materials. Now, we need to think about what percentage per what material, but we can figure that out. So this is a very dynamic approach, and it has a fixed target that you don't need to change. Because it will adapt to all your demand in MRP, that you don't need refreshes or reanalysis. Once in a while, let's say the vendor is underperforming, you can increase the percentage, or the market's going crazy. Maybe you can increase the percentage, or vice versa. But there's really nothing you need to do. And most importantly, it ensures that for short lead time items, they get a little bit of safety stock because your lead time is really short. So why would you carry a lot of quantity? If you can get this in-house in 5 days, well, then you don't need a lot of safety stock or any. And the longer lead time items get more safety stock. That makes sense. And then let's use fixed quantity for zeroing out, or maybe you got bulk items that you want to, have I don't know, it's a tote. So you put in 1 tote, 3 totes, 10 totes, whatever that is. If you use a fixed quantity, you leave it out there. There's going to be outlier cases that we can use the out of the box. The point is, all of these are out of the box, are existing. They're totally automated. You don't need to do anything for the most part. Unfortunately, the VF model still needs to run, but we take those and we go with it. And they better align with the way Fusion works. Now, Fusion's a proper dynamic safety stock that interprets differently, but it is much closer to the Fusion approach. That's where I think we need to go. I want to hear your challenges on this and stress test this before we take it to Christian and John and everybody else. But I think it's the way to go. So give it some thought and let's talk.